All right, joining us now is Carmi Levi, our tech analyst. Carmi, thanks very much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Roger. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad your computer's working and you can talk to us. It's a good
It's
thing.
not a Windows machine, it's a Mac, so
Okay.
I'm good.
So we're okay. So anybody who owns a Mac is good. What exactly unfolded here? What went wrong, and big time wrong?
So there's a company called CrowdStrike, and they are an American provider of cybersecurity apps and services. They partner with Microsoft to provide security services to Windows-based machines. That includes both the laptops and desktops that we all use, as well as Windows computers that are in data centers, servers that run the websites, the apps, the services that we rely on day to day. And so there's a piece of software called Falcon Sensor that they sent out an update overnight, and it was supposed to be to sort of address the latest threats that are out there. So ironically, an app that's supposed to keep us safe against the things that we'll find in the wild from cyber criminals, there was an error in it, and it caused Windows computers to constantly reboot. They would crash, try to restart, and couldn't, into this kind of vicious cycle, which of course meant that any website, any app, any service that relied on these computers suddenly wasn't available. And because this was a global issue, it affected all Windows machines anywhere. It didn't matter what country, it didn't matter what sector. This is as big as I've ever seen in my career, simply because it was a common piece of software that every version of Windows uses, even though you and I are probably not even aware of it. This is the first we've heard of it.
How does this happen? I mean, would they not run out a test or do it to a limited group before sending this out around the world?
I've led app support teams or app dev teams in the past, and the problem here is you are supposed to test this in a test environment or a sandbox so that you can break it, you can find its weaknesses, you can fix the problems before they get out into the real world, and that's the way it's supposed to work. Test, test, test. Make sure that you understand that it's as clean as it's going to be, and then you're free to put it into what we call production. But in this case, obviously, they failed to catch whatever that fatal flaw was, and when it got out into the real world, it started wreaking havoc. Also problematic is the fact that even with the software being flawed as it was, you are supposed to have other fail-safes built in, sort of backups of backups and workarounds, so that even if the software doesn't, the update doesn't go as planned, there are still ways to keep things working so the services don't completely go dark. Those also failed in this case, and there was kind of like a cascading failure that resulted in this global event. And so there are lots of questions. Why was the bad software allowed to get out of the test environment in the first place? And why didn't those fail-safes kick in? Certainly questions that both Microsoft as well as its CrowdStrike partner will need to answer.
Now, they say it wasn't any kind of a cyber attack or anything like that. And could it have suddenly picked up something going out as it went out, or is that impossible?
Probably not. I mean, I think the risk here, you would have to be a really good cyber attacker in order to figure that out. And it's certainly not a common form of attack that we've seen before. And so I don't think so. I think the likelihood of that happening is very low. This is really just a bad execution of information technology best practice. And so there's some IT professionals who have some explaining to do. That doesn't mean that we're out of the woods, though, because cyber criminals tend to zero in on victims, targets, when they feel they're most vulnerable. So a global outage, lots of uncertainty, lots of questions about which systems are working, which aren't. I would expect that in the days to come, we will see more attempts by cyber criminals to take advantage of the fact that we're a little bit off of our game. Things have been rocked a little bit. So we'll probably see a bit of a spike in the attempts there. And certainly for us as regular users, we'll just have to watch our inboxes, watch our systems to make sure that we're aware of what's going on and that we can respond accordingly. This is not a time to put our heads in the sand.
Now, a patch is going out. They hope to have the repairs. How long are we going to feel the repercussions from this? And will they look at this and maybe when they do a rollout next time, they do it more in sections and more controlled?
Yeah, I would say it'll probably take hours for the bad update to be reversed. We're already hearing from CrowdStrike that the reversion, sort of the rewinding back to before this happened, is already happening. They're sending out the updated code, and that seems to be working. We're seeing a reduction in the number of reports of outages, and so we're definitely headed in the right direction. But there's a huge backlog of work that didn't get done during this outage, and that's going to take days. to work through. There are a lot of systems. So, how long will it take WestJet to rebook all of those flights that were canceled? That's going to take well into next week. And so, I think going forward, certainly this is going to help boost the quality of our IT services, because we're going to learn what happened here. We're going to understand precisely why. It's going to be embarrassing for these companies, but that will contribute to that level of knowledge. And maybe we will see what we call compartmentalization, so that you test it, but then you roll it out, maybe not globally, but maybe to a certain small population, see if that works, and then grow it. So we may see changes to the way software is rolled out on a global scale because of this, that will keep a small problem from becoming a big global one.
Okay. Carmi, thank you as always for your insight.
Appreciate it, Roger. Thanks.
Carmi Levi is a tech analyst.